In The Problem of Pain, C.S. Lewis addresses one of the most challenging questions faced by Christians and non-believers alike. If God is good and omnipotent, why does he allow his creatures to suffer? Lewis explores this theological dilemma with the intent to provide a logical explanation for the existence of pain in a world created by a loving and all-powerful God. He aims to reconcile the existence of suffering with the concept of a benevolent deity. Chapter 1. The Problem of Pain. Lewis begins by acknowledging the apparent contradiction between the existence of a loving God and the reality of human suffering. He states, if God were good, he would wish to make his creatures perfectly happy, and if God were almighty, he would be able to do what he wished. But the creatures are not happy. Therefore, God lacks either goodness or power or both. This sets the stage for his exploration of the nature of pain and its role in the human experience. Lewis emphasizes that understanding the nature of God is crucial to resolving this contradiction. He notes that humans often project their limited understanding of goodness and power onto God, failing to comprehend his infinite nature. This misunderstanding is a key factor in why people struggle with the problem of pain. Chapter 2. Divine Omnipotence. Lewis discusses the nature of divine omnipotence and addresses the limitations of even an all-powerful God. He explains that omnipotence does not mean the ability to do the logically impossible. For instance, God cannot create free creatures and simultaneously ensure they always choose good. Lewis writes, his omnipotence means power to do all that is intrinsically possible, not to do the intrinsically impossible. This distinction is vital in understanding why a perfect world without pain and suffering is not feasible. Chapter 3. Divine Goodness. In this chapter, Lewis explores the concept of divine goodness. He argues that human understanding of goodness is limited and often distorted. God's goodness, Lewis posits, is not merely about granting immediate happiness, but about the ultimate good of his creatures. He states, we want in fact not so much a father in heaven as a grandfather in heaven, a senile benevolence who, as they say, like to see young people enjoying themselves. Lewis contends that true goodness involves the willingness to discipline and correct, much like a loving parent does with a child. This form of goodness is more concerned with the long-term well-being and character development of the individual rather than their immediate comfort. Thus, pain and suffering can be seen as tools used by God to shape and refine human souls. Chapter 4. Human Wickedness. Lewis delves into the nature of human wickedness and the concept of original sin. He argues that humanity's propensity for evil and suffering is a result of the fall, which introduced a fundamental corruption into human nature. He explains, man as a species spoiled himself, and that good which was given him in his creation and is still reflected in the traditions and experiences of the race has been tainted. The fall, according to Lewis, represents a collective turning away from God, leading to a distorted human nature that is prone to wickedness. This inherent corruption is a significant factor in the prevalence of pain and suffering in the world. Chapter 5. The Fall of Man. The discussion on the fall of man is central to understanding Lewis's perspective on pain. He explains that the fall was a deliberate turning away from God, resulting in a broken world. This fallen state is characterized by a separation from God, which in turn leads to suffering. Lewis writes, what Satan put into the heads of our remote ancestors was the idea that they could be like gods, could set up on their own as if they had created themselves. This act of rebellion brought about a profound disconnection from the source of all goodness and life, leading to a world marred by pain and suffering. The fall introduced disorder and chaos into the created order, affecting not just humans, but the entire cosmos. Chapter 6. Human Pain. Here, Lewis addresses the different forms of pain and their purposes. He asserts that pain serves as a divine tool for awakening and refining the human soul. Lewis believes that pain can lead to spiritual growth and deeper dependence on God. He famously states, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Pain, according to Lewis, is a catalyst that compels individuals to confront their own limitations and seek a higher purpose. It strips away illusions of self-sufficiency and fosters a sense of humility and reliance on divine grace. Chapter 7, Human Pain, continued. Continuing his discussion on pain, Lewis explores the concept of redemptive suffering. He suggests that pain can lead to a greater good, both in this life and in the life to come. He acknowledges that while this may not make pain less difficult to endure, it provides a framework for understanding its purpose. He writes, "We are, not metaphorically, but in very truth, a divine work of art, something that God is making, and therefore something with which he will not be satisfied until it has a certain character." Lewis highlights that suffering can refine and transform individuals, molding them into beings of greater spiritual depth and character. This process, though painful, is essential for achieving the ultimate good that God intends for his creatures. Chapter 8, Hell. Lewis tackles the concept of hell and eternal suffering, which he admits is a difficult and troubling doctrine. He argues that hell is a necessary aspect of free will and justice. Those who choose to reject God ultimately choose separation from him, which is the essence of hell. He explains, "In the long run, the answer to all those who object to the doctrine of hell is itself a question. What are you asking God to do? To leave them alone? Alas, I'm afraid that is what he does." Lewis emphasizes that hell is not so much a place of divine punishment as it is a state of self-imposed separation from God. Those who persist in rejecting God and his love ultimately seal their own fate, experiencing the natural consequences of their choices. Chapter 9, Animal Pain. Lewis addresses the problem of animal suffering, acknowledging that this is a particularly challenging issue for Christians. He suggests that animal pain can be understood in the context of the natural world's fallen state and the interconnectedness of all creation. Lewis offers a tentative explanation stating, "If animals are sentient, we must therefore conclude that they too suffer in this world as a consequence of the fall." While Lewis admits that this explanation is not entirely satisfactory, he argues that the overall narrative of a fallen and redeemed creation offers a framework for understanding the existence of animal pain. He also expresses hope that the redemption of all creation will ultimately address and heal these wounds. Chapter 10, Heaven. In his final chapter, Lewis shifts the focus from pain to the ultimate hope of heaven. He describes heaven as the fulfillment of all human desires and the resolution of all suffering. Lewis emphasizes that the joy of heaven will far outweigh the pain of earthly life. He writes, "Heaven, once attained, will work backwards and turn even that agony into a glory." Lewis paints a picture of heaven as a place of ultimate reconciliation and joy, where the purposes of God are fully realized, offering a perfect counterbalance to the problem of pain. Conclusion. Throughout The Problem of Pain, C.S. Lewis offers a profound and nuanced exploration of the issue of suffering. He acknowledges the complexity and emotional weight of the topic while providing a rational framework for understanding pain in the context of a loving and omnipotent God. Lewis's work remains a significant contribution to Christian apologetics, offering hope and perspective to those grappling with the realities of pain and suffering. His insights remind readers that pain, while difficult to endure, can serve a higher purpose in the divine plan. Lewis's exploration of pain is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a deeply empathetic engagement with the human condition, offering both solace and challenge to readers seeking to understand the purpose of suffering in their lives. By addressing the problem of pain from multiple angles, including theological, philosophical, and existential perspectives, Lewis provides a comprehensive and thought-provoking treatment of this enduring issue. As always, thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more content for the soul. Take care, and God bless.